Previously on CSIS 2470.
All right, we're done. We click finish. And then to verify that we are done, let's go to the command prompt and we'll type in that thing again, node-v. And it now says we are using version 22.14. Now, I know on Macs, the install process will look slightly different just because Macs are slightly different. But I'm sure you've installed software on your Mac before. It shouldn't be so drastically different on a Mac that it looks nothing like what you just saw. So you should be able to get yourself there. And if not, ChatGPT is your friend to help you out. That's it. We got it installed. Let's move on. Now that we have Node.js on our local machines, we're going to use our local machines to simulate a live remote server, right? Like I mentioned earlier, we're not going to bother spinning up a real remote server, but we're still going to do the same thing we did a minute ago when I ran some PHP locally on my computer. I ran it through a PHP interpreter and it delivered HTML to the browser. Well, we're going to do the same thing here. We're going to use Node.js to write some code that's going to turn into HTML and deliver it to the browser. So to start off with, because this is web stuff we're talking about, we need to include the HTTP module. So we need to require that. And so let's just get it and then assign it to a variable here. So we'll call it HTTP. Why not? That makes sense. Let it equal require. This is a function that we use here in Node.js to include this module, the HTTP module. Now we have it. This HTTP variable is an object that we can access methods from. And so the first method we're going to use is the create server method. And we're going to assign the results of the create server method to a variable. So we'll go with let server, again, call it whatever you want, but server seems to be the right thing to do here. HTTP dot create server. Now this create server function takes in a parameter, which is a function itself. And this is a function that has the job of handling what to do with the requested information from whoever types something into the browser. And so there are two parameters that this anonymous function here will take. And the first parameter is the one that takes the information that was requested from the browser, right? The www.whatever. And so we can call it REQ. That's pretty standard practice in the industry to call it that. But again, it doesn't matter what you call it. But the first variable, just know that that's going to deal with whatever's requested. The second variable is going to deal with the results. And so typically that's what we use RES. Again, you can use whatever you want, but those are standard practice. For the moment, we're going to ignore the requested information. No matter what they request, we're just going to send the same thing to everybody for now. We'll fix that and make it better in a minute, but just for now, to get the basics down, let's start here. So now this second variable, which is the one that handles the results, what we're going to do is let the browser know, hey, we got the request and we're going to let you know that we have it, so it was successful. So we're going to write some header information to the browser to let it know, hey, browser, we're about to send you some information and here's the kind of information you're going to get. So results.write head, which is write header, short for write header. We're going to send that information. And it takes in two things. One, the status code, which we're telling the browser status 200, which if you'll recall from the Ajax lecture, that means everything's okay. So we're telling the browser everything's okay. How do we know it's okay? Well, because our code is saying it's okay, because clearly if we're sending this to the browser and it receives it, then it got the message that everything's okay because our code is saying, yes, we got it. And then the other thing is an object literal, that has header information. For now, we're just going to give it one piece of information, which is the content type, and the type is going to be text/plain. That's it. So the first thing we're doing here, we load the module on line 1. This is the HTTP module. Line 3, we're setting up a server that can handle the request from the user, which we're ignoring right now, and then it can handle the results. The first thing we're going to do is with the results object, we're going to write some information to a header that we're going to send to the browser. So we're giving the browser some header information. And then the end result here, so end function, is whatever we want the message to be, whatever is going to be displayed on the browser page. In our previous one with the PHP, it was the hello and welcome to our site or whatever, right? We're going to recreate that with Node here in a minute. But for now, we're going to do our happy birthday. We were born.
Happy Happy birthday! Hey, I said my first words.
So that's it. We've created the server, and whenever there's a request, we're going to ignore what they say, what they ask for, but we will give the results to the browser, which will be these things right here. And then the last thing is we have to actually turn the server on. So we do server.listen. Now, when we tell the server to listen, we need to tell it where to listen, what port. We're going to listen on port 3000. You can also have an optional parameter here, an anonymous function that just for now we're going to use it, and we're going to have it console log a message that says something like, listening on port 3000 or something like that, just to let us know that it's working, that we got to this part of the code. And that is it. So that's the code. Now, right now, if I go there, just like earlier, we went to 127.001 and then we typed in some slashes to get to a particular page. Well, right now we're going to go to 127.001:3000 because we told it to listen to the web on port 3000. Well, this is the local web, right? 127.001 is the local URL for your local server. And that's true on any computer. That will be the local URL on just about every computer. There's some exceptions, but generally that's the case. Now, when I hit enter, it's actually going to die because we haven't actually turned on our server. We haven't told it to run yet. We've written the code, but we haven't actually told Node.js about the code. So right now, if I run it, it's going to die. Just like you kind of saw when we did it with PHP, right? It didn't work. So how do we get it to run? Well, we got to go back to the terminal or the command line or PowerShell, whatever. And this script file that we're using happens to be on my desktop. So I need to go to my desktop. And if you do a dir here or on a Mac, it's ls, same with the Linux. And you can see there's the desktop is inside of my JStone folder. So I just have to find wherever the file is. So on my case, CD for change directory to desktop. And now I'm in the desktop. And if I dir, I can see there is that script file right there. So to run it, node script.js. Oh, and I got an error and I can see it right there. It's telling me on the right here. It's telling me where the error is. So if we go back to our code, we will see it. This is an object right here. It's an object literal, right? So remember the syntax for that. You have the key and you have the value. I stuck them all in one set of quotes on accident. So that should fix that. Come back here, a little tip in the command line. If you hit the up arrow, it'll show the last command you typed. You can keep going up and it'll show previous ones. You go down, it'll take you back down. So I just went up and ran it. And now it says I'm listening on port 3000, which is good. And so now if I come back to the browser, it's already reloaded and said happy birthday. That's it. Now, if you look here at the code, the raw HTML, it's literally just that, because all of this turned into that. That's all it did, right? Just like the PHP, all the PHP code we wrote turned into just a simple little message. So that's a very rudimentary example of what Node.js can do. Now, notice here, the server is running still. If I close this window or I do Control-C to break out of this, the server's not running anymore, right? If I come back over here and I try to reload the page, I get an error. Well, I don't know what happened there, but I'll get an error again here that it can't reach the page. Well, the same thing would happen on your PHP server if you turned off the server, right? Or you stopped your server software from running. Obviously, your server doesn't work anymore. Well, that's not a thing that normally happens, right? Your servers are usually up. I mean, depending on how good of a service you have, it may have some downtime once in a while, hopefully not. But obviously the general rule is that your servers are up and running. Well, we just turned ours off, right? But we can turn it right back on, of course. Go back and say Node.js. And so while you're building your application here locally on your computer, you want to keep that running at all times so you can test your code. So go back and refresh and we're back to this again, right? And I'm actually looking at the code version of it. There we go. All right, one last thing I want to do here. Remember, the promise was we can make HTML. I didn't make HTML. I made plain. Oh, apparently I made plain text. That's a typo. I'm surprised that actually worked. That should have been plain. Sorry about that, folks. Well, what I would want to do, kind of like what I did with the PHP, let's open that up here real quick. You recall I had this H1 business here, so I put an H1 tag around our greeting. Well, let's put an H1 here. Now, the problem is, just like when we're using the DOM and we're saying set the inner text versus the inner HTML, you're going to see a similar problem here. First, we got to restart our server though. So I Control C to stop it, and then I reload it because we changed the code, so we have to restart the server. Okay, and then go here and refresh, and we get this little business, right? That's not what we're going for. Well, that's easy enough to fix. All we do is tell it, hey, we're not doing plain text, we're doing HTML. So it is text. HTML is just text, right? But it's text that has special things in it, like angle brackets, like an H1. And then the browser knows what to do with it now because we told the browser, hey, everything was good, we got the information, and we're about to send you some text that looks like HTML. So now let's reload the browser, restart the server, sorry, and refresh. And now it's an H1, and you can see what was delivered to the browser was this code here, and that's how it rendered. Okay, so now we're doing some HTML here. Well, let's go a little bit further. Let's now take in the request information from the URL, right? When the user types in whatever.com/something, there's information there, and that will be given to that request variable. Well, let's do something with it. And the thing we're going to do is a pretty common thing that you'll see with Node.js. Node.js makes it really easy to do one-page apps, where whether they go to stonecoldprofessor.com/about or /contact or /whatever, it's just one HTML file, or in our case, one script file, JavaScript file, that does everything regardless of what the URL is. Most of the time, and as you've seen with apps you've built in this class or any other web classes you've taken, well, the about page is its own separate set of code, and the contact page is its own separate set of code, and so forth. Well, it's very common with Node.js to do all of that in one file. And so no matter where they go, /whatever, it just all happens right here in this file, right? So let's do that. We're going to just say allow them to type in about and contact, and everything else. We'll give them a 404 error. How about that? Okay, we've got the request here. And so we're going to now look at that, and we're going to ask a question. If the request, if the URL, right, that's a property of the request object, is equal to just a slash, right? So 127.001:3000/, in other words, just the home page, then we're going to say, welcome to the home page or something like that. And so we need to basically do this right here, right? We need to send a 200 header and tell them it's going to be HTML. And then we're just going to have a message that says, welcome to our site, right? That's it. Then we're going to check to see if they type something else, like, I don't know. Sorry, I should have said else if a request URL was equal to about. If that's the case, well, we're going to do the same kind of thing here. So I'm just going to keep copying and pasting this here, right? And this time we're going to say about us, we're, right? Let's do one more. We'll do if the required, I keep saying required, it's request. The request.url is contact. Then we'll say, hit us up. Okay, last one, we'll do an else here. If they said anything else, like /banana or /whatever, then we're going to say, hey, that's not a thing. So we're going to give them a 404 error. Remember, all the things we've done in the past where we've seen a 404 error or a whatever, the 200 when we were doing Ajax, that was the site, like the pick a card site or the number site, telling us that, yes, we have got the request and everything's okay. Well, now we're that site. We're the server. That's what all this is. We're the server saying, hey, that's not right, or it is right, right? It is right. Sorry about that. Okay, so here we go. And we're going to say page not found. That is it, right? This is now a one-page app, okay? Now, it's very rudimentary. And if we go refresh, it's going to not work, which I did that on purpose because I wanted to show you why you have to restart your server, right? So we go back here, and it's still running the old version of that script. So we have to stop the server and then restart it. Now when I refresh, it says welcome to our site because we essentially did the slash, right? The slash just means the root. But if I said about, it says about us, we're awesome. If I say contact, it says hit us up. If I say anything else here, it says page not found. And again, what do we see here? The H1, the raw HTML is what was sent to the browser, and then the browser interprets that and it goes, oh, H1, I know what to do with you, and it does that. Now remember, the intent here is I'm not expecting you to memorize this or have mastered this, or now you have all these functions memorized, and there's a lot of stuff here. The intention here is just to show you conceptually how this works. Just like when I showed you the PHP, I wasn't expecting that when you looked at this PHP that you were going to memorize how to make a variable with a $sign, or how to generate a random number, or how to print stuff out into HTML. None of that. This was just to show you conceptually what's going on. I mean, if you are feeling overwhelmed, it's okay, because this is not meant to be, hey, now you're a Node master. But I just want you to understand the basic idea of it. Conceptually, what does Node do? Back-end scripting, so you can do stuff on the server that generates HTML. And then how does it kind of work? Well, we kind of have a sense here now. We require this HTTP module, we create the server, and we take in a couple parameters here to deal with the requested information and the results. And then we send headers and some text to the browser. The browser interprets the text as it always does, and we start the server down here, right? We listen, we turn it on. Now, obviously, there's a billion more things that you can do here, but this is the foundation here. So the last thing I want to do to kind of wrap this up is to show you, to bring everything full circle here, we're going to recreate that same app we did in the PHP, where we made an array of random responses and so forth. So I'm just going to grab this because this is the same, right? We know what that looks like in JavaScript. So I'm going to create right up here, greetings equal that. Whoops, that. So now we have that, and then we can also just say let I equal math.floor, math.random, the length of the greetings. Greetings.length. And we're multiplying by greetings.length rather than greetings.length minus 1 because we're flooring this, which means it's going to truncate the decimal. All right, so let's clear out some of this stuff here. I'm just going to leave that header part there because we are going to need that. It'll be a different number and a different message and everything, but that's a good start. And we're also going to move this down here so that every time they go to the page fresh, we get a new random number. And then we'll just make a message here, like let message equal greetings bracket I. So there's our message, right? Well, now remember, we need to generate the entire HTML and send that to the browser. So we need our JavaScript code here to do that. Well, we already have this written in PHP, so I'm just going to copy and paste some of this, right? I'm just going to copy that. Because we use the backticks, we can do the message right here. We'll go an H1 and we'll do the message variable and close the H1. So now here's our HTML right here. Well, now we can just change this right head to say 200, and it's going to be HTML. And then the results end that we send to the browser will be that HTML variable right there. And that should do it. There's not much more there that I can see at a glance here. So let's just go restart our server. Control C, restart. Didn't get any errors. That's good news. Refresh. And we got hello. Oh, yeah, we forgot to add the rest of that hello. So it did work. We got hello, but hello and welcome, right? That was our real message to our site. Something like that. If we look at our PHP and welcome to our site. Yeah, that's exactly what it was. So now let's restart our server again. Okay, refresh. Howdy and welcome to our site. Or refresh it. G'day, mate. Hey. And again, if we look at the code delivered, what do we get? It's just raw HTML. I cannot stress that enough. It's just raw HTML. So all this funky, fancy code here, ultimately, all it did was create some text. It's text, and as you saw, we even told the browser it's going to be text. It just so happens to be text that has things in it that make it look like HTML, because that's all HTML is. It's text that's formatted a certain way with angle brackets and so forth. Just like here, when we do have a style sheet, what do? We say the type is text/CSS, right? Because what is a CSS file if not just a file full of text, but it's got certain little things like curly braces, colons, and semicolons that the browser goes, oh, I know what to do with that. That's the same thing here. We're just saying, hey, send it to the header. We're telling the header. The browser gets a header response here saying, hey, you're about to get some text, and it's going to be formatted like HTML. Do whatever you do with your HTML. And that's it. So you can see that's all that was sent to the browser, just that raw HTML. Hopefully now you have a little bit better sense of what is Node, and it's been a little bit demystified. It's not as scary. And maybe when you get out in the industry, you will have an opportunity to use it in your job. And if you end up working with frameworks out in the industry, which is pretty likely, then you'll need to be aware of Node.js because a lot of the frameworks work with Node.js. So that's it for this one, folks. Thanks for coming to class. And as we say every time, take a look at the questions on the screen there. If you can answer those questions, then you're ready to take the quiz. And you've learned everything you need to know from this lecture. We'll see you next time.